Welcome to Faith Moves Forward. I am your host, Adam Silas, and I have a special guest with me here. I've known this gentleman for a very long time, but I actually don't actually know him. We were in the same church organization as boys, and now we're both gray-haired men. And I've been following him on Facebook, and I really enjoy his insight and his perspective on a lot of things that I'm passionate about. Who sounds like he's passionate about. So I want to welcome to the podcast Lawendall Price II. Thank you so much for joining me, sir. I really, really appreciate it.
Blessings to you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, so let's get started. So I think I met you we were must have been little boys, like 5, 6, when you guys used to come to before it was even called Love Temple, where your uncle was the music minister. Y'all would
Right.
come and hang out with family, and then I so used to love when your grandfather, the late great Theodore Brown, used to come. He
Yes.
was such a dynamic and funny and like genuine, real man of God. I still remember him as a little boy would just shake my hand and then he'll do something funny with his hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was such a genuine, down to earth person with a great personality and a real zeal and love for God's people.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about your background and where you come from and what all that has meant for you.
Well, I am 38 years old, and as you mentioned, the gray hair is coming in, and I don't know. It feels like an invasion force. You pull one out and 17 more pop up. But anyway, uh,
Exactly.
I'm married to a wonderful woman, Delania Price. We married in 2009. Have two wonderful kids. Kendall, she's 10, and I have a 6-year old, Keenan.
Hmm.
My boy, he's a miracle baby, and
Hmm.
we're just so thankful. I hail from Okahumpka, Florida. And if you don't know
Mm.
where Okahumpka is, it's about 5 miles south of Leesburg in the pocket.
Mm.
And if you don't know where Leesburg is, uh, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
But I'm from Lake County, Florida, and I'm a third generation preacher. This is
Hmm.
not something that I wanted per se. I
Hmm.
was fine doing uh, being a musician, playing the drums, and
Absolutely.
being an usher. And
Hmm.
but when the call is on your life, it's best to answer. So that's a little bit
Is
about my background.
and it's definitely on your life as we talked about. You have your third generation on both sides, so you come with a deep history of not only what you've seen, but what they have come through, and now you're here in it, pastoring with your dad. What is that like? What has that been like for you?
Pastoring, we left our old context in 2018, and pastoring with my dad outside of the confines of an organization, it has its challenges, but
Hmm.
it is very rewarding. It's like being it's like being in the wild. When you go to Busch Gardens, they
Hmm.
have all of these guardrails and things to keep you away from the animals. You know,
Yes.
out here, out here, my man, it's different. There are no
Yes.
guardrails.
Yes.
Rails. You're in there with the lions, the tigers, and the bears, and oh my,
Absolutely.
it can get real fast. So, but
Absolutely.
it's rewarding. One of the things I told my father, I think that, and I believe this in my heart, and I don't even have a scriptural reference, pulled up in my mind for this, but I believe it
Hmm.
is the duty of sons
Hmm.
to see their fathers off the scene, to make sure that their fathers know that, okay, I got it. we're going to carry this
I
thing on. And I that's how I feel
absolutely,
about it.
absolutely, man. That's beautiful. And now you're in this. So tell me, what was it like when you first? Because I was like you, man. Like I remember having a conversation with God. Listen, I will be the best lay member you ever had. Like, God told me, I don't want none of this.
Right.
And then it came a moment when I finally accepted who I was and what I've been called to do, that I had a peace in that. And I've had that peace in my calling and who I am ever since that. So tell me a little bit about when you first came to this call, or when you first heard your call.
Well, I don't have the testimony that a lot of people have of,
Hmm.
the Lord chased me for 17 years and, and then I finally surrendered. I got beat up, but, I surrendered. So we on the Lord's side now. I don't have that testimony. And that's a terrible testimony, by the way, in
It
my
is. It
opinion.
really is.
Um,
It is.
uh, but as a young boy, I remember my mom telling me that I ran into her room one day and said, "Mom, I gotta preach." And she said, "You gotta preach?
Hmm.
What do you mean?" She said, "Yeah, I gotta preach. And I feel it right here." And I was pointing to my stomach. Now, I don't really
Oh
remember
wow.
all of this.
Yeah.
And I've always had a understanding of how important the gospel was and
Mm.
is. And then as when you grow up, there's other things. You're a boy, but I never strayed too far. I've had my quote unquote wild years, and
Hmm.
but there was always this tug. There was always this, okay, you're doing too much, and it was always drawing me back. And even now, when I recognize there are there are just things that I can't do, even down to the you know uh, social media when
Hmm.
everybody's laughing at something, and I
Yeah.
think it's funny
Absolutely.
too. But
Absolutely.
I can't really go there because the minute I do it is a problem.
Yeah.
But so there's always been this call, and it's not anything for me. It's not anything like I'm so up there and high minded.
Right.
It's just that I want to protect my witness
Hmm.
from me from
Hmm.
the things that I would do
Right.
without the Spirit of God. So that's kind of, where my call comes from. And I
Hmm.
remember specifically, we were driving to Atlanta. I think this was the year after me and my wife got married. And I was
Hmm.
doing the minister's classes and everything. And we were driving to Atlanta. And I had determined that, Lord, okay, I'm just going to do what you want me to do. I was in the church. I was a good member. That's what we were talking
Yeah.
about. I was a good
Yeah.
member
Yeah.
and not
Hmm.
giving my preacher any problems. I said, but Lord, I'm going to do
Right.
what you want me to do. And I'm just going to accept this call. And I had determined that before I
Absolutely.
got to the meeting. So we're driving up the road, and whoever we were following, they were taking the streets so fast. It
Yeah.
was about 90 miles an hour, and we're like, I
Wow.
don't want to drive this fast. And then the little white Honda Santa Fe started to wobble, and then before we
Wow.
could react, the tire popped at 90
Wow.
miles an hour, and my
Jesus.
wife grabbed my hand, and she said, baby, it's gonna be okay. And I said, okay, it's gonna be okay. And
Yeah.
um, we brought the car safely to a stop, and
Hmm.
the tire was just shredded. Now,
Wow.
in all honesty, it should have been tipped over, We should have been
Flipped
broke up and dead.
18 times.
Yes, but we made it to the meeting, and I learned this valuable lesson that when you determine to do what God uh, tells you to do, and you haven't fulfilled it yet, you got to do that. And He protected us.
Absolutely.
I'm protecting you. I'm preserving you for the ministry that you have to do. And I would still to this day we reflect on that, uh, and we think about that. God preserved
Wow.
us for this place. So
Wow. I love that. I love that because you're absolutely right. I mean, I've seen people die from crashes with way less things that have happened before your tire to come off at 90 miles per hour and you were able to pull off. That was nobody but God.
nobody but God.
That's amazing. Oh man, that gave me chills. So tell me a little bit about your um your calling and ministry. I know we talked a little bit about that, but like tell me where you see, because it sounds to me as if holiness and righteousness is something that you are standing firm on. And where does that, if that's true, where does that place come from?
It does. And let me preface what I'm going to say by,
Hmm.
saying this. We have, and I'll just frame it this way: in the current Black church, we
Hmm.
have made holiness a spooky ordeal,
Hmm.
and we've made it so nebulous and so
Hmm.
it's a look and it's a feel, and then if you don't wear this and you don't wear that, then you're not holy. And really, honestly, with a lot of things, God is so simple in
Hmm.
his dispensations to us that you have to have a
Hmm.
religious person help you mess it up. Uh,
Absolutely.
and it's about it's an element of control there, but holiness means to be set apart and activated
Mm.
for God's use. So no matter whether I'm
Absolutely.
wearing cut up jeans, flip flops, or whatever, um, I'm holy because He
Yes.
is holy. And
Right.
that be is transitive, means it
Hmm.
confers because of Him. It's not due to my actions. And when you understand that your actions don't produce holiness, you are practicing. You are a physician. Amen. You are a physician. It's a
Right.
practice. We're practicing and working out and walking out what God has for us, and what He has done through His finished work on the cross through Jesus Christ. So when I look at holiness and righteousness, is not what I do in performance. It's who I am
Yeah.
as a result of the finished work of Jesus, and therefore it takes all of the burden in trying to perform for God's pleasure, or for Him to be pleased with me. He's already pleased with me because I've accepted Jesus, and that's irrevocable. And therefore, it
Right.
frees me to be the best me, and I will do more holiness and righteousness on accident than I ever tried to do on purpose. So that's how I look at that.
Absolutely. That's, oh man, that was so beautiful broken down. I love the fact that you highlighted the fact that because of Jesus and our accepting of Jesus, that is what we are in the prompt in the continuous cycle of being made holy.
Right.
And I love the verse that says that Jesus is the author and perfecter of our faith. And what we tend to get stuck on, either we get stuck on the beginning, like the salvation part, or the end when we are all on to
Mm-hmm.
glory, but we never really think about the
No.
middle as if He
Right.
disappears and goes someplace else. But He is also the perfecter of us, of our faith in the middle. And that is something that I have been completely transformed with in the last I'd say 15 or so years when my eyes became open to, that I have accepted him, and his goodness and mercy is what keeps me.
Right.
Not the performances, not the suits, not the button up, not any of that, not the hey, drink the
Right.
Coca-Cola way back in the
Right.
day. you know, not none of that. It's he that makes us holy, and that is so freeing. So let me ask you this: what was it? When was it that moment when that part became real for you? Because I remember this was sort of a gradual thing for me about 15, 17-ish years ago for me, when I just kind of, when my eyes became open, it's like, oh, he's able to keep me. Not any rules, not anything. He is the keeper. When did that become prevalent for you?
Um, I would say right around the same time as I kind of accepted the call. See,
Hmm.
in church, we have become uh, good actors. We
Hmm.
know how to look solemn. We know how to
Hmm.
uh, sway at just the right moments, and we know how to do the churchernese, what I call it, or the church speak,
Hmm.
and sound deep and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the matters of life, then that's where the rubber meets the road. And for me, I was at a point where, Lord, I know you have a call for me. I know that you exist. But this thing that we call church in America
Hmm.
is not
Hmm.
is not, and as the young folks would say, it's not hitting. It's not hitting at all. And
Right.
um and I was at a point where I was just ready to be uh leave church, and
Hmm.
because you know I saw my grandfather. This is something I witnessed with my own eyes, you know,
Hmm.
casting out demons, and I've seen people
Hmm.
healed just like instantly, and I've seen people
Hmm.
give their lives, to the Lord, and they are still saved to this day, and I've witnessed and I've seen my parents do all of these things, and it's just like um, where we are now
Hmm.
it's a weird place for the
Yeah.
church. So I got to a place of just going through the motions, and sometimes God will send you help from the outside. Sometimes
Hmm.
you need a different perspective, and I started listening to a preacher, and he was teaching the simple nature of the
Hmm.
gospel, how it works. And I mean, oh man, over that year and a half, 2 years of just every day I was
Hmm.
on podcasts listening to teachings and
Hmm.
stuff, and then
Hmm.
understanding, and all about getting understanding. And understanding how the gospel
Absolutely.
works, and not relying on my performance. It's like a fire was lit on the inside of me,
Mm.
and then didn't
Yeah.
matter what the physical or visible church was doing. Uh, I knew that my uh, my faith in the Lord was authentic, and,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
was the turning point. And when you get that type of faith, when it's authenticated like that, you can
Yeah.
go through a lot of things, and even be in a situation where it's not ideal, but because of
Hmm.
whose you are and who you are,
Right. Yeah.
and I'm gonna
Yeah.
say this, I might make some saints mad, but I think it fits. But like Birdman used to say, I can fly in any weather, and
Yes.
and it's true though. The gospel
Yeah.
equips us for everything, and once I got a true understanding of the gospel, and
Yeah.
not church. Once I got an
Yeah.
understanding of the gospel, it lit a fire on me in me, and we've been there ever since.
Awesome. That's really good, man. I love that because when I'd say my earliest remembrance of open up the Bible was like 4 or 5. We used to have this picture Bible, and it had like all the Old Testament scenes. Just remember the stories from the little booklets that they used to give out in Sunday
Mm-hmm.
school. It would have all those stories, and I just remember being fascinated with that as such a little boy. And somewhere soon after, I felt the call to preach, but I ran from it for about, oh my goodness, for about 10, 15 years. I didn't want any parts of it just because I seen all the negative and I had let all the negative stuff get to me. But then I got to a place of surrender where I was like, God, I'll do whatever you want to do. I'll go wherever you want to do. I will follow you wherever you want to follow me. And I've had a peace in my life about that ever since. And I know there's something that is going on in America. You kind of hinted to it. There's a lot of millennials and Gen Xers, even some of them, and this this next generation, the Gen Zs that are coming up with a different
Mm-hmm.
gospel that is being preached, and a lot of it is this new age type. It's okay, positive type, or I don't even like to use the word grace based because the true grace of Jesus is the power that
Right.
keeps us. And I hate that people have taken grace and just made it some flowy like real, but the grace of Jesus is what is the power that keeps us. It's really the same power that took Jesus off the grave, that took Jesus from the grave, and we seem to have let it go to this thing. So tell me a little bit about where what you are seeing, because I know there's a lot of people that are leaving church. You even hinted to that about you possibly leaving church, but there's just something that we have done in previous generations and this generation that we have not kept the gospel, the gospel. Tell me a little bit about where your heart is on that.
Um, this that there is a lot to unpack there,
Yes.
because a lot of people, and I hear a lot of people saying, and especially those within the church, they will say something like, "Well, millennials and this new generation just don't want God," and that's not true.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
that is a defeatist mentality. Um, and then there's on the outside looking in, well, all those church people are the same,
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah,
not true.
absolutely.
And so
Right.
there has to be, and there are the middle ground folks who are saying, uh, okay, I know that this isn't true, and I know that that isn't true. There has to be some middle ground for us to come into some kind of agreement. Now, where I kind of fall on that spectrum is I believe that millennials do want God. I do believe that Gen Z,
Hmm.
uh, even my kids, they are curious. They want to know
Right.
about God, and see,
Absolutely.
because Romans tells us that there is an inherent knowledge of God, um, and if you don't cultivate that, then you there's the danger of if you look at Romans 1 of falling into that when you don't acknowledge God, you turn
Absolutely.
away from the truth.
Hmm.
So the church is, and especially the Western church, we have
Hmm.
been neglectful of discipleship. So it's not that
Yes. Oh, that's
it's,
so
it's
good,
not
brother.
that millennials don't want God. What they don't want,
Mhm.
they don't want the nepotism. They don't want
Mhm.
the theatrics and the antics. They don't want the abuse.
Mhm.
We got to stop telling, and
Right.
I'm gonna go here. We got to stop telling women to to cover up and don't wear this and don't wear that and don't
Right.
wear pants.
Yep.
And it seems like all of these rules are against the women as far
Right.
as dress. But we not telling the
Mhm.
brothers, okay, them pants a little too tight, bro. We don't need to see
Right.
your socks, and we need to get back to the truth of the gospel and discipleship. So it's not that the millennials don't want God and that all the church people are the same. We all
Yeah.
lying and money grubbing.
Right.
Uh, I can say this for
Mhm.
New Day: we don't pay any staff, not a single.
Mhm.
Everything
Mhm.
goes back into the ministry.
Mhm.
I have a secular job. We everything we do is
Mhm.
from the heart toward the people. So and so there's this bridge that needs to be built, and those in the church can't do it by themselves, and those outside of the church can't do it
Yeah.
themselves. There are people that are bridge people. That's me.
Mhm.
I want to reach out
Mhm.
across the aisle, and I want the other person to reach out. Okay, you don't want to come to the church. Hey, let's go get some coffee. And so
Absolutely,
and
man.
we have to
Absolutely.
take the covers. See, we and church people are notorious for this. We want we want salvation and their coming to be on our terms. We want them
Mhm.
we
Right.
want them to start coming to church and and start dressing like the mother and
All their problems fixed as
right.
soon as they
And
step in the door.
and
Yeah.
we don't tell people, hey,
Mhm.
you may struggle with this. You may struggle, hey, you were in a relationship and it was an inappropriate relationship, not um
Right.
uh in marriage, and so you may struggle with your
Mhm.
flesh.
Right.
Does that make you any less
Right.
savable? Does that make you any less loved
Right.
by God?
Absolutely.
And if we really
Mhm.
told the truth, there are
That's good.
many people in the church. They're not struggling. That you know what they're doing? They just doing what they want to do, and still wearing their suits,
Right.
preaching, leading the praise and worship, and they're doing the same things. And then that
Absolutely.
on that note, many of the generation they know these things and they see, and then so now
Yes.
it's a matter of trust. And so
Absolutely.
there's
Absolutely. That's such a good. That's so good, man. I I I make it a point to my kids when we go out, we are representing Jesus. I was at my son's basketball game, and this lady she had her kids. I had my 4 month old with me, and I'm holding him, and this lady she had like two kids that were probably four and under, and there was a garbage can that just um, just splashed all over the place. So I got up and I had my baby and I started picking up the trash. And she's like, "No, sir, those are my kids." I was like, "Listen, I got four, so so this is no problem for me." And I set up and picked up all the paper, went and got all the things, and it wasn't a big deal for me because number one, I've been
right,
there. Number one, number two, she was struggling with her baby. My baby was good, and she was struggling with her baby trying to get the. Why would I sit there and look at her and make her clean
right,
that up? You know, that's not loving my neighbor. The best thing I could have did was pick up that trash and help her out. She was struggling. I don't know what she's been struggling with, but that was my moment to show her love for her neighbor. And whenever we go out, I'm always cognizant of who I am and who I'm representing. And that's part of that bridge that you're talking about. I might not be able to share the gospel every single time I go out, But what I can do is share the love of Christ. And those seeds are being planted